And I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense.
I mean, some people do loathe you.
Yes, some people do.
But do you understand why? Do you think what you're doing is helpful for Western democracy?
Maybe some people do loathe me. And I think a lot more people hate you and the media more than you realize. They hate you. They hate you far more than they hate me. So, I mean, you're hated. Do you even know that?
大家好，今天要和大家分享的是《经济学人》总编辑扎尼明顿贝多斯对埃隆·马斯克的一段专访节选。在这场对话中，马斯克罕见地正面回应了外界对他的诸多争议，从人工智能、中国崛起到政府改革、欧洲政治，几乎无话不谈。埃隆·马斯克这个名字本身就是一个现象，他是世界首富，掌控着特斯拉、SpaceX 平台和xAI。他正在改变汽车、航天、人工智能和社交媒体这四大产业。但过去几年，他从一名科技企业家逐渐变成了一个极具争议的政治人物。他花了440亿美元收购推特，并改成 X， 公开介入美国大选，主导政府效率部的改革，还频频对欧洲政治指手画脚。有人称他为技术救世主，也有人骂他是失控的寡头。那么他到底是怎样看待自己的角色的？在这次访谈中，马斯克与《经济学人》总编辑展开了长达近1个小时的正面交锋，双方在 AI 监管、中美竞争、政府改革、媒体公信力等多个议题上观点激烈碰撞，精彩程度远超一般的商业访谈。下面我们就来看看，在这场对话中，马斯克到底说了什么？为什么会让在场的人如此震惊？
How do you think about the Chinese models and the geopolitics of it? Are you worried about the Chinese catching up and getting ahead?
Given that the Chinese AI companies are doing as well as they are with a relatively small amount of compute, it seems though that if they had a lot of compute, there's a good chance that they would be the leaders. And at some point, they probably will have a lot of compute.
So they will be the leaders.
There's a good chance that they are the leaders at some point. You can think of like the constraints on AI are essentially electricity and AI chips. And then for physical AI, the robots. China's also got some very good robot companies. In fact, they have these like robot sporting events. I don't know if you've seen some of them.
Yes, I have. I saw them last time I was in Beijing. I saw the robots.
Well, and then they have the sort of like a boxing match or fighting match with the robots, which is quite entertaining. And I saw some video of a robot that got its head knocked off, kept fighting, even with its head knocked off. It looked pretty funny. But, I mean, in fact, I think the robot battles are going to be quite entertaining to watch.
But just
so China's very strong on robots, very strong on digital AI, and if you look at electricity production, you can say like AI is a function of whatever the limiting factor is. If it's chips or electricity, China has far more electricity than the United States. In fact, China has more electricity than the United States, Europe, and India combined already, and is heading to. And my guess is China gets to 4 times the electricity production of the U.S., which is roughly proportionate to the population.
What should the US government do about this? I mean, if you presumably it is a little alarming if you have an authoritarian regime far ahead in the most powerful technology. And clearly what the US government's been trying to do is, with the export controls and so forth, keep China back. Do you think they should ban the use of K3, Kimi K3, for example?
Well, the US government can't. They can pass some law that prevents U.S. companies from using Chinese models, but they can't stop the rest of the world from using them. So it's not like the U.S. government has authority over China or the rest of the world.
Do you think they should stop U.S. companies from using them? There's talk of that right now, right?
I don't think that helps. That won't stop China from being the leader in AI. really, it's for digital intelligence. It comes down to how much AI compute do you have? How many chips do you have, and how much power do you have? How much electricity do you have? So the constraint right now, I think, is actually slightly more on power and cooling than it is on AI chips, because the power demands of the AI chips are very, very high. We'll talk about water demands, but really the water usage of AI is negligible, or almost nothing. But the electrical demand is very high.
That's why you're thinking of orbital data centers, presumably.
Yes, the constraint for any AI chips not being turned on in China is electricity and like power and cooling, and the electrical equipment and everything. The rate at which AI chips are being made exceeds the rate at which new electricity is coming online.
In China? Okay.
Outside of China.
Outside China, I see, yeah.
And since China, the U.S. has banned the export of the latest AI chips to China, China is somewhat chip-starved.
But they are becoming much more efficient at using the chips that they have. And that one of the striking things of Kimi K3, right, is how efficiently they...
And China is also, I think, closer than most people realize to solving the lithography problem, which would enable them to make AI chips at very large volumes. So the current constraint is electricity outside of China. In China, the constraint is chips. Once we address the power constraint with AI data centers in space, then the constraint will once again be chips outside of China.
You've played a big role domestically, politically here. You spent a lot of money on Donald Trump's re-election. After the election, you got very actively involved. Through Doge, you tried to cut a lot of spending, reshape the government. How do you feel? That it wasn't hugely successful in the sense that, there wasn't nearly as much spending cut as you tried. How do you, as you look back on that, do you regret getting so involved in politics? Do you think it was a good thing to do?
I think I got a little too involved in politics, got carried away, frankly. So the goal with the sort of Doge stuff was to try to do something about the deficit, which is massive, where the interest payments exceed the amount of money spent on the Department of War. I got a lot of flack from this, for this, obviously.
It is a fair criticism that the way you shut down a whole bunch of programs probably, in fact, certainly caused unnecessary suffering. I mean,
no?
No?
No.
So you don't buy the idea that anybody, to put it really crudely and simply, any kid in Africa died because of the suddenness with which...
Zero.
I just don't think that's right. I just don't think... I've had people reporting in Africa who...
How many NGOs are there that could step in? Because bear in mind, it happened quickly. And there are literally tens of thousands of NGOs.
Not everyone functions as fast as you do. If funding is cut off for antiretrovirals overnight, and it just stops, then people will die when they don't have access to them. And it just...
only if they cannot get funding for that. But the Gates Foundation has $50 billion. What about them? What about any one of a number of organizations? What about
well, in lots of these countries, USAID...
Mackenzie, whatever her last name is, used to be Bezos, gave $50 billion. What about that?
But, let's be practical. In many of these countries, USAID was the biggest funder. But I don't want to have an argument
USAID was a political organization.
It may also have been that, but it was the biggest funder of healthcare systems. So I'm very sure that there was...
Biggest funder of regime change.
And there may well be benefits from having changed the system.
Also, USAID funding was not stopped. It was moved to the State Department.
It was stopped. There were huge numbers of things shut down in Africa that were
there were
health-related.
Claims of this. These claims are false. They're nonsense, and absolute nonsense. But obviously, just for when funding is stopped for fraudulent organizations or for something, do you think they're going to say, well, please keep funding the fraud? Or do you think they're going to come up with a sad story that sounds sympathetic in order to get the funding restored? Obviously, it will be the latter, and that's exactly what they did. But zero died because
Well,
of
that's
Doge.
what I that's what I
Zero
would that's what I would take issue with. Because
0.0.
I think you can. I actually have a lot of sympathy for the change of the aid regime that the U.S. under the Trump administration has precipitated. However,
Yeah.
I think the pace and the suddenness with which it happened will almost certainly have caused unnecessary suffering and deaths. And I think both of those can
No,
be true.
I think that's totally false.
Okay. Well,
And
let's
obviously false because there are the amount of funding we're talking about is far less than what can be done than what can be supported via private.
So-
They are capable of acting very quickly, and if they didn't, I would say they're equally responsible.
I see. Okay.
Obviously,
All right. Fair point.
zero people
I
died
hear-
because of
I
Doge.
hear you loud and clear.
Zero,
Hear you loud and clear.
obviously.
Domestically, you stepped away from Doge. It was hard to do what you were trying to do. You've just explained it. But this administration has gone in directions that I suspect you were not expecting 2.5 years ago. You know,
Well,
the war in
I'm not
Iran.
going to agree with everything any administration does.
Are you disappointed by this administration?
No, I think this administration, on balance, is excellent. No administration is perfect, but it's vastly better than the alternative.
Can we talk about Europe? A place that you are very, very focused on.
I'm not that focused on Europe.
I think judging by your posts, you're pretty concerned about Europe. You support
I've once in a while I post something.
it's reasonably frequently. It's not once in a while, but because I'm genuinely interested in this. As someone who lives in Europe, lives in London,
Yeah.
you paint a picture. Well, first of all, you support not just the populist right, but the far right. In fact, very fringe parties in some countries.
No, I
that-
support the normal people.
Okay.
What you call the far right, falsely.
You think is the normal person. Okay.
Yes. Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal. In fact, one of the
I'm
one
not
of the,
sure
one of the
what
tricks that I think
Rupert Lowe
is funny.
projecting is-
One of the things that's quite funny is to like take a speech from Obama and Hillary, and then go to someone and say, who's sort of on the sort of what I call the lunatic left, and say, what do you think of the speech by Trump? I'm like, oh wow, he's the worst person ever. Actually, that was a speech by Obama, or actually, that was a speech by Hillary.
I
Literally.
agree. No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted. Certainly, the Democratic Party has shifted to the left. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert
Not
Lowe. I'm
fringe
talking
right,
about
please.
people
It's
on.
actually just normal people. It's just normal people. It's just normal people. And and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders. That we should have safe cities. That we should have sensible spending. Which of those three are far right
Those three.
fringe?
No,
And I would like to just admonish you
Do.
and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense. Please keep this part in.
We'll keep all of this in. But let
Don't
me
cut this part.
Let me push back on that. Let me push back on that
Because it is
you have
nonsense.
Elon, you have what is it? Close to 250 million followers on X.
Yeah, because I'm
You
a
say things like,
popular guy.
quote, civil war in Britain is inevitable. Just a question
On the current
of when.
trend, yes.
When were you last in the UK?
A few years ago.
Exactly. So I live there. I'm there the whole time. That is nonsense.
You live a
to-
cloistered existence.
No, I don't actually. And the numbers also disprove what you say.
What
In
numbers?
All the numbers about crime. London is a much safer city than any city in the United States. Violent crime in the UK is not where you think it is. In fact, it's coming down. You have painted, and because you have so many followers, so many Americans believe it, a kind of view that Europe and the UK are kind of, overrun with terrifying Muslim immigrants. There's rape on every corner. There's a sort of civilizational destruction.
said any of those
It's
things.
Just not. Well, you say civil war in Britain is inevitable, and
Yes,
then
if current trends continue, it is.
why?
Well, if you have a large and rapidly growing group of people whose beliefs are antithetical to Western beliefs, at some point there will be a reckoning. That they will try to implement their views, and those who oppose it will oppose it, and that's what you call civil war. And obviously, this is the trend. And you absolutely do live in a cloistered existence. And if you'd like, we can go on a tour of Britain.
Sure.
And we
I'd
can
be
go on a
very
walking
happy
tour,
to come on a tour of Britain.
and you will see
You
for
come
yourself.
see my country that I live in all the time, and you haven't been
Yes,
to a few
I've
years
been
ago.
there literally 100 times.
But when was the last time?
It's literally a few years ago.
You know why this exercises me? Because you have really shaped opinion about the UK. I honestly think that it is irresponsible for you to put that up on X.
I think that it's a movie, and it's worth watching.
You're clearly suggesting Europe is dystopian place. There are problems. I'm the first to admit that there are problems.
Yes, there are major problems.
There are problems, but it really is not what you are describing to or suggesting to your 240 million followers it is.
I think it is.
And I think there's a problem.
No, I think I'm spot on.
I think you will find that most people in Europe, or many people in Europe, don't think you're right about it. But let's come to that.
Yes,
But
because the media keeps ignoring reality.
I don't think that's true either. I really,
And they're programmed by the TV and conventional media. And I think it's a crying shame that the sort of traditional media, like you, don't recognize this.
First of all, I think that you hugely exaggerate the challenges that Europe faces. Secondly, in areas I completely agree with you. I think that the constraints on freedom of speech in the UK in certain areas are problematic. What worries me is that the people you are supporting are really quite vile people in some areas. And your blanket support of this kind of party with 240 million followers means that you have a power in Europe that I think perhaps you don't realize the scale of impact you have. But you can...
Well, good. I hope I am having a big impact.
But why? Why should you? Why should you be able to shape European politics? You don't even live there.
I think of it as the sort of the West collectively.
But do you see why this makes people think that this man who has all this power, he's the world's richest man, he thinks he has a right to influence our politics? It makes people... It's why, we started this conversation saying superlatives. It's why people loathe you. I mean, some people do loathe you.
Yes, some people do.
But do you understand why? Do you think what you're doing is helpful for Western democracy?
Maybe some people do loathe me. And that's probably true. I don't care. But the fact that, as you pointed out, 250 million people follow me is that I think a lot more people actually like me than don't. And I think a lot more people hate you and the media more than you realize. Do you realize the media is despised? Do you realize that journalists, the view of journalists is like, it's like a favorable view of journalists is like 15%.
I do know that. In the United States...
So the shoe is on the other foot. They hate you. They hate you far more than they hate me.
I think there is certainly a loss of trust in journalism. I think in part there have been mistakes by journalists and journalism. I totally acknowledge that. But I also think that the kind of polarized environment, particularly on social media, fostered by the kinds of things you are pushing on X, actually helps this, makes it worse.
I don't think so. I think you're the problem, the media. And speaking of loathing, you're loathed far more than I am. And you don't seem to even realize that.
I think very few people know who I am relative to you, so I don't think I play in the same game.
The media collectively. So, I mean, you're hated. Do you even know that?
看完这段访谈，说实话，最让我感慨的不是马斯克的财富和权力，而是他身上那种极其矛盾的两种状态，竟然可以同时存在。在访谈的前半段，他是一位高瞻远瞩的未来主义者，谈 AI， 谈机器人，谈人类成为多行星文明。他描绘了一个惊人富足的时代，一个普通人可以拥有任何想要东西的世界，听起来就像是科幻小说变成了现实。然而到了访谈后半段，他迅速切换成了一位愤怒的政治斗士，攻击媒体，攻击建制派，攻击欧洲的移民政策，甚至公开预言英国的内战不可避免。这两种人格竟然同时存在于一个人身上，这让我想起一个词，卡桑德拉效应。马斯克自己也在访谈中提到了这个词，他说自己很擅长预测未来，但人们总是不相信他说的话，直到事情真的发生了，人们才恍然大悟。但问题在于，如果他真的能预见未来，那为什么他的解决方案总是如此粗暴？ 比如关停美国国际开发署，他声称零死亡，而建制派媒体却预测1400万人死亡。双方的数据天差地别，但真相或许不在任何一边。而在两者之间，不过比起数据之争，我更想谈一个更本质的问题，像马斯克这样的人，到底应不应该拥有如此巨大的权力？你看，他控制着太空运输、全球互联网接入、社交平台和人工智能。一个人同时控制着这些，这在人类历史上从未有过。传统资本家是在既有规则内玩游戏，而马斯克代表的是新兴的技术资本主义。他不仅在规则内博弈，他还在重新定义游戏本身。他收购推特是为了打破传统媒体的话语垄断，他发射星链是为了让地球任何一个角落都能上网，他研发 AI 和机器人是为了创造一个富足时代。但问题是，谁来监督那个定义富足的人？在这次访谈中，主持人扎尼问了一个非常尖锐的问题：一个连欧洲都没去过几次的人，凭什么决定欧洲的政治走向？马斯克的回答是：我把它看作是整个西方世界的事。这个回答其实并没有正面回应问题，他的逻辑似乎是我有能力，所以我有责任。但有能力和有权利之间真的可以直接划等号吗？这让我想到另一个很有意思的对比，马斯克对中国的态度。在访谈中，他坦率地承认中国在 AI 和机器人领域极具竞争力，他甚至说中国很有可能在未来某个阶段成为 AI 领域的领跑者。这种坦诚呢，在西方精英阶层中其实非常少见。多数西方媒体谈论中国时，总带着一种中国威胁论的叙事框架，而马斯克则更像一个工程师。他在谈事实、电力、芯片、光刻机、人口规模。他承认中国的发电量已经是美国、欧洲和印度的总和，而且还在增长。他也承认美国的出口管制只能延缓，无法根除中国在芯片领域的突破。他甚至说，如果美国公司禁用中国 AI 模型，那也无济于事，因为世界其他国家还会用。这番话其实非常务实，但也正是这种务实，让他和那些传统政客显得格格不入。传统政客谈的是价值观，而他谈的是供应链。不过他这种务实主义在欧洲问题上的体现就让人有些不安了。他转发那部美化私刑暴力的影片，他预言英国内战不可避免。他在 X 平台上用 2.4 亿粉丝的账号放大极端声音。主持人问他，你知道这会让别人怎么看你吗？他说，我不在乎。这不是傲慢，而是一种更深层的东西。他觉得自己已经超越了在乎的层面，他相信自己的判断高于舆论，高于体制，甚至高于民主程序，这才是最让人不安的地方。事实上，马斯克在访谈中也承认了，我有点过度参与政治了。坦白说，确实有点忘乎所以了。这句话很微妙，他不是说我错了，而是说我做的有点过了。这意味着他依然认为自己做的事是对的，只是方式需要调整。但这种自我反思能持续多久呢？他的政府效率部任期只有130天，他在任内得罪了整个建制派，最后被联邦法官叫停。他想用硅谷的逻辑去拆解华盛顿的系统。他以为问题是效率低下，但根本问题是权力结构不容触碰。而你一旦动了整个系统的命根，系统就会让你知道谁才是老大。这是马斯克给所有技术精英上的一课。但抛开这些争议，还有一个问题让我反复思考，在10年之内 IE 真的会超越全人类智慧的总和吗？马斯克的答案是肯定的。他说 AI 会在5年内超越全人类智慧，10年内 AI 和机器人将彻底改变世界。在那个世界里，工作将是可选的，商品和服务将极大丰富，金钱会变得不再重要。他甚至说到2036年，钱就不重要了。这话从一个世界首富嘴里说出来，确实有些讽刺，但仔细想想，他说的可能是对的。如果机器人和 AI 能生产出远超人类消费能力的商品和服务，那么传统的经济逻辑就会失效。到那时候，人类的竞争不再是谁更有钱，而是谁更有意义。但这恰恰是马斯克没有回答的问题。在那个富足时代，人活着是为了什么？是像他说的那样，去花园里种菜，去树上荡来荡去， 还是说人类将被 AI 视为宠物拉布拉多？他10年前说过一个比喻，让我印象非常深刻，人类充其量就是 AI 的宠物拉布拉多。如今他的说法变了，我们要确保 AI 有良好的价值观，关心人类，但怎么确保，谁来定义什么是良好的价值观，这些细节他并没有展开。也许是因为即便是马斯克也无法完全看清起点之后的世界。正如他自己所说，数字超级智能就像黑洞，因为你不知道在那之后会发生什么。这句话大概是他整场访谈中最诚实的一句。所以回到最初的问题，马斯克是一个什么样的人？他既不是纯粹的天才，也不是纯粹的疯子，他更像是一个站在时代缝隙里的人，一边用技术撬动未来，一边用本能回应过去。他在用最先进的技术解决最古老的人类问题：资源分配、权力边界、意义追寻。但工具本身并不能替代问题本身。AI 可以算出最优解，但它无法告诉我们什么才是好的生活。这或许是马斯克和他那一代技术精英最容易被忽视的盲区。他们相信只要算力足够，一切问题都会迎刃而解。但人类社会的复杂性恰恰在于那些无法被量化、无法被优化、无法被计算的部分，比如尊严，比如归属，比如意义。这些东西 AI 给不了，算法算不出，金钱买不到。而马斯克正在加速的那个未来，会不会让这些东西变得更加稀缺？这个问题他选择用一个笑话来回应。他说，我希望迎来星际迷航或星球大战那样的未来。这是一个6岁男孩的梦想。他说星球大战是他人生中看的第一部电影，那时他6岁，他觉得那是世界上最酷的东西。而他现在的一生似乎都在努力把这个童年梦想变成现实。他做到了，而且做得比任何人都多。但这让人忍不住想问，当一个6岁的梦想已经实现之后，一个成年人该如何定义自己的下一个目标？马斯克的答案可能是去火星，去星际，去让人类成为多行星文明。但即便到了火星，我们带去的依然是地球上的那些问题：偏见、冲突、权力欲望、意义焦虑。这些东西不会因为换了星球就自动消失。所以真正的挑战不在于技术，而在于人心。而这恰恰是马斯克最不擅长也最不感兴趣的领域。他喜欢造东西，不喜欢搞关系；他喜欢解决问题，不喜欢理解情绪；他喜欢工程，不喜欢政治。但问题在于，当你的体量已经大到足以影响数十亿人时，不搞政治本身就是一种政治选择。马斯克在这场访谈中反复强调，我只是想确保 AI 有良好的价值观，但谁是那个定义良好的人？谁又来监督他的定义？这些问题他没有给出答案。也许因为他自己也在寻找，也许因为他觉得答案并不重要。但对我们这些普通人来说，这些问题其实比马斯克的那些火箭、AI 和机器人更加重要，因为他们关系到我们到底会生活在一个什么样的世界里。是像他所说的惊人富足的时代，还是像他所预言的内战不可避免？这两种结局竟然出自同一个人之口，这本身就很说明问题。马斯克不是一个可以简单归类的人，他既是乐观主义者，也是悲观主义者，既是未来主义者，也是怀旧者，既是救世主，也是破坏者。他像一面多棱镜，折射出我们这个时代的全部矛盾，而我们每个人都在这面镜子里看到了不同的自己。有人看到希望，有人看到恐惧，有人看到机遇，有人看到威胁，但无论如何，没有人能忽视它。这大概是马斯克留给这个世界最确定的东西，它的存在本身就是一个无法回避的问题。好了，这期视频就到这里了。制作视频不易，如果你觉得做得不错，感谢你动动手指订阅本频道。如果你有更多想法或建议，也可以在评论区告诉我，每一条我都会认真阅读。下期见。